Some of those watching this video now may recall the story of a young girl named Bianca Devins, who at age 17 was murdered not far from her home in Utica, New York. The story mostly became popular in the first place because the killer had posted extremely grotesque pictures of her corpse online, which will not be shown here for obvious reasons. Few true crime pieces have interested me quite like the story of Bianca, going by the online alias Oxychan on both platforms, being a mixture of the term oxy, or the street name for the frequently used and abused narcotic, and chan being the Japanese term for a close female friend or lover. Perhaps I just like researching these cases out of morbid curiosity and fascination, but I also think there's probably something to be learned from this case. While much of the sensationalized media painted this story as a case of an angry white male stalking and murdering an innocent girl, looking a little deeper into the story, it can easily be shown that it was a bit more complex than that. Let me be clear that the purpose of this video isn't to say that Bianca deserved what happened to her, or that there is anything good about misogyny. Rather, that the media intentionally lied about this story, and the prevailing narratives around this have been completely false. Today, we'll be uncovering the truth about this tragic case, and what it says about the internet as a whole. On July 15th, photos were posted to social media platform Discord from the account of Brandon Andrew Clark, a 21-year-old man from Cicero, New York. Users soon realized that the pictures were of Bianca, who had been extremely active in a few online communities. He posted the same picture to his public Instagram account with some rather disturbing captions, a few of which being, "Here comes hell," and "I'm sorry, Bianca." These photos were reported to the authorities shortly after, as it was clear to all of the users seeing these that something was horribly wrong. Police were dispatched to Post Street at approximately 7:20 a.m. for a welfare check. The first officer arrived and found a black SUV with Clark lying on the ground next to it in a wooded area at the end of the street. As the officer approached, Clark almost immediately began to stab himself in the neck with a folding knife. He then laid down on a green tarp on the ground, some distance away. The officer noted brown hair coming from beneath the tarp and asked where the injured female was. Clark said she was under the tarp and took out his cell phone. Police believe he then took photographs of himself lying across Devins. Other officers then arrived, disarmed Clark, and took him into custody after a brief struggle. He was taken by the Utica Fire Department to the St. Elizabeth campus of the Mohawk Valley Health System, where he underwent emergency surgery. He was listed in critical condition, but upgraded today to serious but stable condition.
And it's unclear why this happened on Post Street. Police are still investigating if this murder was planned.
We're aware that Bianca and Brandon did attend a concert in the New York City area on Saturday night leading into Sunday and prior to this incident. We do believe that something occurred while attending this event or on the way home from this event that ultimately led to this incident.
Looking at clips from the media at the time, it's clear that people saw this as nothing but online men being men, and the reason why women are scared of men online. This is extremely evident from Philip DeFranco's news show, where he goes over the prevailing attitudes at the time towards the case.
The hashtag #RipBianca trended on Twitter with people sharing their condolences and also speaking out against violence of this nature. Examples like stories like "RipBianca are the reason why women fear men on a daily basis. This guy stalked her, was obsessed with her, then killed her for denying his advances, and then posted all of this on his IG. So when you say, well, why don't you just say no, this is why.
And honestly, given the information that these people had, I can't exactly blame them for believing this. And I'm not here to cast shade, which, believe me, I love doing. I've accumulated over 100,000 subscribers from doing just that. But that's not what we'll be doing here today. Those relying off of early information were pretty quick to judge the situation based on 1 or 2 screenshots, or simply reading a headline and posting their hot takes on Twitter. When people broadcast their immediate reactions to a situation, they're bound to spiral nowhere but upward. However, due to some leaks made from a few of her mutuals on Discord, Twitter, Instagram, and 4chan, as well as the testimony of those who were in the same communities as her, particularly on the board's SOC or camps and meetups, and R9K, it's clear that things weren't okay with Bianca to begin with, really. Multiple help threads had been posted in online communities because Bianca was known to be especially promiscuous, which can be troublesome when at a young age, in my opinion, or whatever. And this isn't to say that 4chan is the best place to seek help with your mental health, or help with anything, really, but realistically, it's clear to other people in these online communities that there were lots of issues with the way that she was behaving, and they had made an effort to help. A decent amount of people actually seemed to feel partially responsible for Bianca's mental health, passing some of the blame onto the culture of these sites and taking it off of Bianca. In these communities, she was known for sending sexually explicit pictures to other online users constantly, as well as reportedly lying about her age online to get adult men to engage in sexual conversations with her, and then revealing her true age and explaining that if they didn't either give her money or narcotics, she would report them to the police. While you could of course say that these men were dumb for just trusting a random girl online, and that they should have simply avoided her unless they had full proof that she wasn't underage, it's still important to acknowledge that Bianca did this specifically with the intention of manipulating these guys. It's not so much that you should feel bad for these adult men, but rather that these actions still speak volumes about who Bianca was as a person. There are other screenshots of her admitting why she feels that she enjoys using people, as well as screenshots of her listing her prices for selling nude pictures of herself. So far, this paper trail has painted an image of a very disturbed person, but add on top of that the knowledge that she has borderline personality disorder and spent most of her time online, it became clear that she wasn't exactly mentally sound to begin with. There are a number of screenshots that have been posted online of conversations with her where she was manipulating people she was in relationships with and could be seen to have an extremely abusive personality. Here, we see her revealing to her boyfriend that she did not care about him and had been cheating on him with a number of other guys. In this screenshot, we see her doing more of the same to someone she had slept with. In this screenshot, she explains that a large amount of her tendency to use people comes from a constant seeking of validation and daddy issues, as she says. Moving on to Brandon, the social media perception of him being nothing but a creepy incel who was stalking her online was also refuted by multiple family members, including her sister, who said the following. And although somewhat unverifiable, a friend of Bianca's also came out to say something to the same effect, strengthening the case that Brandon and Bianca were rather close.
The family was familiar with Brandon, and they're shocked that this occurred.
The couple met online through Instagram about 2 months ago. A case that has got national attention and trending on Twitter, hashtag RIP Bianca.
From screenshots and testimony posted online, it has become clear to me that Brandon and Bianca weren't exactly together. Rather, they had met online, met each other's families, and become close, possibly in a sexual way, but had never officially been dating. Bianca had told Brandon and multiple other guys that she was using them for sex and never actually cared about them, and then attended a music concert with Brandon. According to authorities, assuming they are credible in this case, Brandon and Bianca got into an argument at the concert, allegedly after Bianca had kissed another guy there. There are conflicting reports of whether or not they went there together initially or not, but from what I can tell, Bianca went with another guy that she was interested in, and Brandon came there with the intention of confronting her. This is evident from Instagram posts he made beforehand, while he was en route to her location. Once there, he reportedly saw her kissing another guy, but I can't find an actual citation for this, so I'd rather consider it hearsay. At some point when they were alone, Brandon, fueled by jealousy, took the opportunity to end Bianca's life. He used a knife for this, concluded by police investigation. Brandon then posted pictures on Discord and Instagram of Bianca, and police were notified of the situation.
Photos were taken of her and were posted on social media or chat platforms, one being Discord. They were posted on there, which led people to become concerned and to contact the Utica police.
There are two prevailing narratives on either side of the situation. Some have used it as an example to show how online misogyny and online culture has led to murders like this one, and the other, somewhat sickening side has come to claim that Bianca simply got what she deserved. The just world psychological phenomenon really in practice here. According to AZ Central, the case had nothing to do with the internet and instead was a case of simple misogyny and internet stalking. This is the story pushed by people who either haven't really looked into the story or would rather ignore evidence that suggests something more nuanced. A number of tweets, like I showed earlier, have also said something to the effect of,
Stories like Rip Bianca are the reason why women fear men on a daily basis.
whether they know it or not, this is kind of disingenuous. This isn't a story about an online stalker, really. Apart from Brandon stalking, and I use that word very loosely, Bianca in the last moments of her life and killing her, there really wasn't a lot of stalking involved. To any of the people claiming that this is a case of toxic masculinity or that this murder is a product of misogynistic online culture created by entitled men, allow me to ask you this. If Brandon had been a girl and Bianca had been a man, would this story have been any different? I'd argue that it would have been the exact same. In this case would be nearly identical in execution. The only difference would be in regards to how people react, a reaction which I'd say would be much more muted if the genders had been reversed. There certainly is some misogynistic culture online. There's misogynistic culture everywhere, but this case has almost nothing to do with any kind of toxic masculinity. Brandon himself was not an incel. He killed Bianca out of jealousy. Not jealousy because he was a man. A girl in his mental state would likely have done the same thing Brandon did. It is worth noting that, as stated before, a decent amount of incels have claimed that Bianca got what she deserved for using people and being promiscuous, which, well, I think this probably speaks for itself, to be honest with you. And I'd like to be sure that Megan Boyenton wanted to be sincere when she wrote this article, and she should be given the benefit of the doubt, but stories like this don't really do justice to the family of Bianca or her friends. Lying or being dishonest isn't helpful to talking about these stories and why they happen. The way to prevent more of these happening, if it's even possible, is to be honest about the facts of a scenario and not become caught up in the political narratives that can be extrapolated from them. I don't mean to come across as an enlightened centrist, because I'm certainly not one. I just prefer honesty rather than anything else. We can expect incels to behave like degenerate losers because that's what they are. In fact, they celebrate it. It's the entire culture that they exist in on the internet and the way that they identify themselves. They're proud of their status. But talking about them in your online news articles really does more harm than good if you really are as against incels and online misogyny as you claim to be. And while I wouldn't expect any better behavior as far as victim blaming from them, I would like to be able to uphold journalists to a different standard. Keep in mind, there were also people that were being honest about this ordeal, which I appreciate in particular. Personally, I'd say that neither side of this argument, be the incels or the people pushing the Brandon is an incel narrative, is correct. What the story of Bianca Devins showed and confirmed to me, more than anything, is that the internet isn't always particularly healthy. Bianca clearly had a number of unaddressed mental disorders and wasn't fit to be spending time online, frequently showcasing manipulative behavior towards relationships and substances. Furthermore, Brandon was clearly ill as well, with not much evidence needed to be provided for that one. I think, if anything, this case highlights how the internet can sensationalize these situations and how the media will twist almost any situation to fit a narrative. The most interesting part of this case to me is how it was spread so far and so quickly. Murders happen every day. Hundreds of people are killed every day. Thousands of unremarkable deaths occur from toxic relationships very similar to this one every year. And yet this one has become the poster child of toxic masculinity online due to a few key factors. Mostly being that Bianca frequented 4chan a lot, a site that has been seen by the general public as a cesspit of villainy, and because of how Brandon posted pictures of her corpse online. This allowed the media to take the story and run with it. And as for Bianca and what happened to her, it's obviously disgusting to say that she got what she deserved. She did not deserve to be murdered for what she did. However, is it completely unreasonable to question whether or not she contributed to the likelihood of this happening? Bianca was effectively an e-prostitute who was selling nude pictures of herself to men and leading on a number of them, and using them for her own gratification. She recklessly promoted an image of herself online that attracted a pretty gross crowd of people. Obviously, we can't say that what happened to her is her fault, because it's not. But she was almost an adult. She should have known better. Or she should have had more guidance from family members or friends in regards to how she was acting online. Parents should probably be a little more involved in general with their kids' internet access. Another message I've been seeing pushed by a lot of people, as is pushed in every tragedy, is that we shouldn't publicize the name of the killer because that's what they want. I see a decent amount of people supporting this message, with people like Philip DeFranco and Repzilla both taking this stance in regards to the situation.
Of the tragedy surrounding what has happened. To understand what happened, when you talk about the person responsible, now we're not going to say his name or reveal his identity, as I don't want to put any glorification to the crime. I don't want to encourage copycats. I want to send the message that this type of behavior will not put a spot in history for you, but rather will make you be forgotten.
Officers identified the man who killed her, but we won't be showing his face or his name in this video. Given the nature of this crime, it feels like in part the monster responsible for this, the goal was to get their name out even more.
This is fucking dumb. It takes 2 seconds to look up who the killer is. By simply talking about them on your news show, you will undoubtedly drive thousands of people to look more into the situation and figure out who the killer is. This moral grandstanding really is fruitless to me, and it comes across more like you trying to look like a good person than actually doing anything, well, good. One of the most important questions to me in situations like this, whether it be a mass homicide or an individual murder, is how similar events can be prevented from happening in the future. It's often a hard question to answer. People quickly become swept up in political narratives and hard, sweeping changes via legislation that likely wouldn't do much to help the issue. As for how I think this case could have been prevented, clearly Brandon and Bianca had some serious undiagnosed and untreated mental issues, or whatever treatment they were receiving was pretty ineffective. At 17 years old, I'm not sure what Bianca's parents were doing with their time if not paying attention to their kid. But if I was a parent, I wouldn't be comfortable with my daughter selling nude photos of herself to adult men online, or even with the extremely sexual content she was making public. These individuals were clearly both very ill and needed help, and somehow everyone in their lives failed them. This isn't to blame them directly, but it's more to say, hey, check on your friends. And to any young girls watching this, clearly this is advice that you should be listening to, seeing my stature as a 95-year-old man, but wait till you're an adult to sell nudes, and be fucking careful about it. As an adult, don't lead losers on when you're on the internet. You're not always going to attract the most stable people, considering how instead of hanging out with girls in real life, they're paying you over Tumblr to send them an ass picture. I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happened to any of the popular e-girl icons right now. Looking at you, Belle Delphine. Pay attention to these communities, be wary of the people in them, and check on your friends. Brandon Clark pled not guilty to the charge of second-degree murder during the trial.